Welcome! Today, we're going to jump into one of the most pivotal moments in all of biblical history, how a single family was transformed into the nation of Israel.
I mean, think about that for a second. How does a scattered group of former slaves even begin to become a unified nation? It's a huge question, but the answer we're going to unpack isn't about military might or political strategy. It's a powerful story about a divine promise and a sacred contract that literally forged a people's identity.
You see, this whole journey, from slavery in Egypt to standing as a nation at the base of a mountain, this wasn't some lucky accident. It was actually the deliberate fulfillment of a divine plan that had been set in motion centuries before.
Okay, so to really get the weight of the contract made at Mount Sinai, we have to hit rewind. We need to go way back to a promise God made to just one man, Abraham.
Now this is the key right here. God's promise to Abraham was totally unconditional. There were no ifs, ands, or buts. God simply said, "I will make you into a great nation." It was a one-way guarantee, straight from God, and it really sets the stage for everything that's about to happen.
So let's fast forward a bit. About 430 years go by, and just like God promised, Abraham's family has grown into a huge population. But here's the catch. They're not a great nation. Not even close. They're slaves in Egypt, and that incredible promise feels like a distant memory.
But God never forgot his promise. And so, he sets in motion this incredible divine rescue plan to free his people and get his master plan back on track.
And the 10 plagues? Wow. They were so much more than just a show of force. What God was doing was systematically proving his absolute power over every single one of Egypt's so-called gods. It was this massive declaration to the entire world that he, and he alone, is the one true God.
So after this miraculous escape right through the Red Sea, this massive group of people is finally free. But now they're kind of lost. They're just a crowd, a mob really, wandering in the desert. They aren't a nation yet. They don't have a shared identity or laws or any kind of structure.
And this brings us to the turning point. Right there at the foot of Mount Sinai, God steps in to give them that identity. He proposes a formal agreement, a covenant, that will act as their national constitution. Okay, listen closely to the language here because everything shifts. God offers them this special, incredible relationship, but this time it's conditional. It's a classic if-then proposal. If you obey me, then you will be my treasured possession.
So you see the difference, right? It's huge. This new covenant, the Mosaic covenant, is completely different from the one God made with Abraham. Israel's special status as God's chosen people now hinges entirely on their obedience, on their ability to keep their side of the contract.
And what was the people's response to this offer? They were all in. Unanimously, enthusiastically, they accepted the terms. They willingly entered into this divine contract and promised to live by its laws.
And the very heart of this new national constitution, the core of their entire legal, moral, and spiritual life, is what we famously know as the Ten Commandments.
The first 4 commandments were all about their vertical relationship. This was about how they were supposed to relate to God himself, their king, their rescuer, their lawgiver. It was all about putting God first in every single part of their lives.
So once that vertical relationship with God was established, the next 6 commandments turned to the horizontal. This was the blueprint for how the people were supposed to live with each other. It was the moral and civil framework for a just and holy society.
So, the Constitution is written. The people have agreed to the terms. There's just one last step. The covenant had to be officially sealed, ratified, in a way that no one could ever forget.
To make this incredibly serious agreement official, Moses seals the contract with blood. He sprinkles it on the altar, representing God, and then on the people. This was a super powerful symbol. It signified a life and death commitment from both sides. And with that act, the nation of Israel was officially born.
Now, to show just how committed he was to this new nation, God did something absolutely radical. He didn't just hand them a rule book and send them on their way. He decided to come and live right there in the middle of them.
He told them to build a special tent called the tabernacle so that his actual glorious presence could be right in the center of their camp. Think about that. This wasn't some distant, far-off God. This was a God who wanted to be physically present with the nation he had just created. But this is where the story takes a tragic turn.
With the ink barely dry on the contract, while Moses is still up on the mountain getting the blueprints for God's dwelling place, the people down below get restless. And they do something just shocking.
They build a golden calf and start worshiping it. They break the very first 2 commandments, the foundation of the entire covenant they just took a life and death oath to obey. And God's diagnosis is swift and sharp. They are a stiff-necked people.
And this instant, spectacular failure just blows the lid off a deep, fundamental problem that's going to define the rest of Israel's story. The contract itself, the law, it was perfect, it was holy, and it was good. But the people, they were flawed. They were completely and utterly incapable of keeping their side of the bargain.
And this question right here, this becomes the central tension of the entire Old Testament. How can a perfectly holy God live among a rebellious, stiff-necked people? This massive failure right out of the gate shows us the desperate need for something more, a better covenant, and a perfect mediator who could actually succeed where Israel had failed.
And of course, that question finds its ultimate answer in the person of Jesus. He's the one who comes to establish a new covenant, one that isn't based on our shaky ability to obey, but on His perfect obedience and God's incredible, amazing grace. And that's how this divine contract at Sinai ultimately points all of us to a much greater hope.